You're listening to the O&P Check-In, an SPS podcast.
This podcast brings you the latest happenings in the O&P industry. We're unpacking trends and news from this tight-knit orthotics and prosthetics community.
Thank you for joining us. My name is Jacki Green. I'm a marketing specialist at SPS.
And I'm Brendan Erickson, regional sales manager here at SPS.
Welcome back to our listeners. If you're new to the O&P Check-In, here is what you can expect. In each episode, we provide a quick SPS update and discuss hot topics in O&P with leading professionals in the industry. Before we get started, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Hey everyone, just want to give a little happy announcement and explain why I was not available on the last podcast. But I'm happy to announce that my wife gave birth to our second child. Beautiful little baby Bo Patrick Erickson is now here. He was 8.5 pounds and 20 inches long. And both mama and baby are happy and healthy. And we're very, very happy over here. So thanks for all the support, everyone. The Lerman Non-Invasive Halo from TrueLife is a non-invasive solution when it comes to cervical spine immobilization of stable, non-displaced, or minimally displaced fractures. One size fits most with buckle attachment makes this product easy to fit to most any patient you have. The non-invasive Halo from TrueLife is available now through SPS. For more information, reach out to your SPS sales account manager today.
Thank you, TrueLife, for sponsoring this episode. Now let's see what's going on at SPS.
So, Jacki, do you remember last holiday season?
It was crazy with all the shipping and everything going on. It was insane.
On the heels of a pandemic, too?
Supply chain issues with getting things, overflowing UPS trucks, Amazon trucks, FedEx trucks, USPS trucks, you name it. I feel like there was an issue.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I was looking out at the ocean and just seeing all the tankers back up and back out further and further.
Yeah.
I think I counted over like 35 of them at one time that were waiting to get into the port at Long Beach. It's pretty crazy.
Oh, man. Well, I know we're hoping for a better shipping season this year.
It's going to be better.
2022 peak holiday season shipping. We're hoping it's going to be better. So we have a blog for you guys with some tips and tricks to kind of help manage some shipping things going into peak holiday season.
Yes, absolutely. And there's best practices that can help you, kind of ensure on-time deliveries and I guess maybe set your expectations of what the marketplace is going to provide with weather, with overflow of holiday shipping, and pretty much everyone. I mean, I know I do it. Pretty much everyone buying retail now and having it delivered to their house.
Absolutely.
So we just got to be prepared for it. Read the blog. It's excellent. It's written by our fearless leader, Miss Ellen Colbus.
Yep, it's a great blog. It's a really great resource. Definitely check it out. And I mean, just like you said, Brendan, we're already getting notifications for crazy weather things that are causing delays this season. So we really want to help you prep as much as you can. I am thrilled to welcome the Executive Director of Florida Alliance for Assistive Services and Technologies, also known as FAAST, Whitney Doyle. So Whitney is an active member on the board of directors of 3 national organizations: the Association of Youth Leadership Forums, the Association of Programs for Rural Independent Living, and the Commission on Rehabilitation Counselor Certification. So at the state level, Whitney is a longtime volunteer with the Florida Youth Leadership Forum and treasurer of the gubernatorial appointed Florida Independent Living Council. And so we are really excited to have her today, talk with her about her experiences working in the nonprofit realm and the challenges she faces advocating for people with disabilities. So welcome, Whitney.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk with you all today.
For our listeners who haven't met you or don't know you, could you give us a little bit of your background and talk about yourself and how you even became involved in FAAST?
Absolutely. So I am based in Tallahassee, Florida, but I actually came to FAAST kind of a very long trek to get here. I started in the prosthetic industry. I got my bachelor's in orthotics and prosthetics and was practicing, became a certified prosthetist back in 2015, and then realized I didn't really want to do patient care. Wasn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be because I wanted to advocate for people with disabilities as a whole. And, I was practicing out of state, so I came back into Florida and started working for a statewide nonprofit that does a conference that has disability resources. And then I bounced around to another nonprofit. But that first nonprofit with the resources, they taught me how to do nonprofit finances. So the executive director for FAAST back in 2018 gave me a call and was like, hey, we need someone to do our finances. And we heard that you had worked with this other partner organization years ago. Would you be interested in coming and helping us out? So I wasn't looking to come to FAAST at the time, but I was super excited to get back into the world of, finances and money management and all that stuff because I personally find that really interesting. So I came to FAAST in 2018 and then became executive director in 2020. So I've been executive director for 2 years now.
Well, so that's so cool, Whitney. And I mean, you mentioned FAAST. How about you go into some details so that all of our listeners out there know exactly what it is? And by the way, I know since they weren't looking for you, it's always a nice congratulations when somebody's looking for you. Even though you weren't looking for a job, they came and found you. So that's pretty awesome. So tell us about FAAST. What is it? How did it become? And what's its mission?
Yeah, so FAAST, which Jacki said, Florida Alliance for Assistive Services and Technology. We're the Assistive Technology Act program in Florida. So Assistive Technology Act's a federal law. So there's a version of us in every state and territory. So there's 56 different Assistive Technology Act programs. So there's definitely one in your state. But for us here in Florida, we've been around since the 90s as well. So our nonprofit's about 28 years old, and we provide all of the services that the federal law allows us to. So basically, we're making sure that Floridians with disabilities of all ages, all disabilities, have access and have a way to acquire assistive technology, which really is a fancy term that means anything that a person with a disability is going to use to do a task that they want to do. So you can consider orthotics and prosthetics, durable medical devices, assistive technology. Those kind of custom level stuff is not something we have in our inventory, but more off-the-shelf kind of items like magnifiers and communication devices and some off-the-shelf durable medical equipment like manual wheelchairs. We make sure that Floridians can try it out or be trained on it to be able to see what's going to work for them before they need to go and buy it. So whether their insurance is buying it or they're going to pay for it out of pocket, or maybe a state agency or a governmental entity may purchase it for them. Feds created us so that we could make sure that it's going to be a right fit for them.
I think that rolls in perfectly with the next one. Can you talk more about the Assistive Technology Act of 1998 and the different categories within assistive technologies? Because I know when our producer Ellen and I were researching for this, every time we clicked on the next tab on your website, I was like, oh, wait, no, there's more. Wait, this is a whole different subcategory. Wait.
Yeah, the federal law, the Assistive Technology Act, is really interesting because they built in all of the different services, but they also made it where states don't have to do all of them. So they can kind of decide what works best for the needs of their communities and kind of pick and choose some of those. Us here in Florida, we go big. So we do every single thing that the federal law allows us to do, which is great because then I can kind of elaborate on all of the pieces so that everyone knows what it's about. But the law is broken into two parts, which is accessing technology and then acquiring it. So for accessing assistive technology, basically a person with a disability can come to us and say they know nothing about tech, or they know a little bit, or maybe they're using it, and we can provide training on that, which can be one-on-one, but it also could be with a group. So maybe like a classroom or a group of employers, healthcare providers. We could talk about how technology would impact people that they serve. We provide information and assistance, which is basically you call us with a question and we'll help you figure out the answer if we don't know it off the top of our heads. And then the more exciting stuff is device demonstrations and then short-term loans. So if someone comes to FAAST and they're interested in trying a device, we can actually help them compare and contrast the item. So get their hands on it, see, this device has this kind of features, this one has this kind of features, because very similar to orthotics and prosthetics, you have devices that essentially do the same things, but they operate a little bit differently. or maybe the buttons are put in a different spot. So really being able to try and play around with them with someone who knows how the device works is really helpful. So that's what we call demonstrations. And then they get to go and take the device home if they want to. So we do short-term device loans where Floridians can take the device and see how it's going to work for them for 30 days. And all of these services are at no cost, which is fantastic. So we say we kind of operate like a book library where you can come and check out a device, try it out. If it doesn't work for you, you can bring it back to us and try something else out. Because again, we want to make sure that you understand and learn the technology before you have to spend money on it. So all of that is the accessing piece of the federal law. And then the acquiring, they allow us to operate a recycling program, but also a device exchange program. So there's a part on FAAST.org where it's almost like Craigslist, where you could list durable medical devices for sale or for donation. But that also includes power wheelchairs, that kind of durable medical equipment, hospital beds, stuff like that. So in Florida, we have a lot of people who are aging in their communities, and when they pass, their family members might have some of these devices that they want to donate. So we can take those devices in, refurbish them, and then get them back out to someone who needs them. And then the last piece of the federal law, which again, every state has this, it's really cool, is you can finance assistive technology through FAAST. So we operate just like a bank, and it does include prosthetics and other durable medical equipment where you can come to us and take out a financial loan. We specifically are geared towards people who are on fixed income, right? So if they have government aid or maybe just have limited income because they're not able to work as much as they'd like to. So we specialize with low credit scores or maybe not a very deep credit history. And we do have, there's no application fee for those. So it's always worth, applying to see if you qualify, if that's the route you want to go. But we do have an interest rate on those. So that interest rate is the only thing where we can't say all our services are free, which is, great that most of them are. But that little bit of an interest rate is what keeps us from saying that. So that's how, if they go through our program and they want to finance it, we're able to help them with that acquisition piece. So those are all the parts of the Assistive Technology Act. It also creates a council that oversees all of these services. So in the federal law, it's called the Assistive Technology Advisory Council. So again, every state and territory has one, and that's something where they're looking for people with disabilities to apply for those boards. So that's something as a way to get involved. If you're interested in tech or want to know more about programs, you can reach out to the organization and see if they have any open seats on their board. And then you can be more involved in the tech realm and see how those services are implemented in your state.
Yeah, I wonder how many of our customers and our listeners even know that these state entities are there for their use and for their customers' use, or not their customer, but their patients' use. And that was kind of the question I was thinking of as you were saying this. I mean, you guys cover a broad spectrum of services. Who's contacting you? Is it the patient directly contacting you? Is it the doctor that's trying to prescribe something and maybe they're just trying to help the patient out and lead them towards the right device? Or would it be an O&P provider, or can it be anybody? How does it work?
That's a great question, and one we get a lot. So we don't require any referrals, any prescriptions. So anyone can call us up or send their contact information online or send us an email. And the short-term loans that I mentioned, it doesn't only have to be the person with a disability who can borrow the devices. So it could be family members if maybe that person doesn't have access to transportation, or it could be healthcare providers like O&P practitioners, or employers if someone's looking to figure out what kind of assistive tech they could offer as an accommodation in the workplace. They could come and borrow from us as well. So we do get to be a little bit broader to make sure that if anyone's going to end up helping someone with a disability with technology, they could come to us and learn about our services. So it really just kind of depends, to be honest. Different partner organizations that we work with in different cities around Florida, they just have different people coming to them. We have one partner that's in a state university, so they have a lot of students coming to them to learn about technology. Another partner we have is in a hospital. So they have a lot of patients as they're getting discharged coming through the system. But luckily, we don't need a referral. It's all based on self-identification. If you identify as disabled or say that you're going to help someone with a disability. So we're allowed that freedom to kind of help more people that way.
Yeah, you must be so busy.
Yeah.
How big is your team?
So there are 7 of us here at our state headquarters, and then we partner with 11 different nonprofits around the state to have those local libraries of devices. So including my office in Tallahassee, there's 12, what we call regional demonstration centers. And then we partner with 9 different centers for independent living for that device recycling program across Florida. So we have a lot of partner organizations to help us, since we have a small team here in Tallahassee.
So I guess kind of transitioning to maybe more of the lobbying side of what you do. So when it comes to lobbying for persons with disabilities, what challenges do you face or have you come across over the course of your time with FAAST?
Well, there are so many issues that people with disabilities are having to fight for as far as access to services, removing those barriers and being truly equal in society. But for FAAST specifically, we are written into state law. Our board, the advisory council, is. So last year we had to go through the process of getting a bill filed to amend our statute, which basically we weren't allowed to fundraise as a nonprofit. So even though we were a 501c3, it didn't say in state law, which, some people can interpret if it doesn't say it in the law, you can do it. Other people will interpret if it doesn't say it in the law, you cannot do it, which is a fun thing to learn through politics on how people read different laws. So for us, we learned that since it did not say we could fundraise, we needed to add that to the law. We also get taxpayer dollars through the federal government as well as state government here in Florida. So we were looking to get our appropriations request in so we'd have more dollars. So the money that is written into the state budget for FAAST is not enough, as we've mentioned, all these services that we're trying to provide. And Florida is the 3rd largest state in the country, and we're growing every day. So we wanted to see if we could get some more money to do that, which we were successful in both changing our statute and getting more money through the state budget last year. And it was a whirlwind.
And you have personal experience in lobbying, right?
Yes. So I was FAAST registered lobbyist last year. So I was the one that went and met with over half of the legislature and just kind of trying to work the system and learning it as I went, because you know a little bit about how a bill becomes a law, but the behind the scenes of knowing which committee it's going to be assigned to and who decides on which committee, who's going to put the bill on the agenda, and kind of truly having to lobby and ask a lot of questions and ask people to care about your issue. And for us, changing the bill had no financial impact. So it was almost like a clerical change. And to get someone to want to take the time to put that on an agenda where they are, not talking about something else that other people may find more important was a challenge. But I fought every step of the way to just make sure and kind of bring it to everybody's attention, probably more than I maybe needed to. But again, I didn't know what worked and what didn't work, which is such a challenge in the legislative process. It's like throwing stuff up in the air and you have no idea what people are going to catch and what they're not going to catch. You just got to do as much as you can to get the word out and hope that something is moving it forward.
It seems incredibly intimidating. Like, I mean, where to even start, right? It's like the old adage of, how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. You're probably just like, okay, let's try this. Let's try that.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of a good way to say that, because you just don't know when you want to start a process. And I always recommend if there's something you want to change or get involved with, see if anybody else is already doing it, so that you can hitch onto their bandwagon or be a voice for them, or see if anybody is actively opposing what you want to do. And then you can kind of see what you're up against. But it's a lot of being organized and just figuring out who you need to talk to. And if you don't know, just start talking to different representatives and senators in your area and ask them what you need to be doing as part of, since they're part of the legislative process and they're being told how to do stuff. They're great resources to teach you who you need to talk to and what you need to do next and what form you have to file and when you have to file it and all of that stuff. So being organized and then just asking questions is a good way to start the process.
So you were saying FAAST is written into Florida state law. So are other states, is it the same for other states, or does it vary on a state-by-state basis if it's written into law?
It varies on a state-by-state basis. So for us in Florida, they decided instead of a state agency running the program, they wanted a nonprofit to run it, but they still wanted that oversight. So they wrote the board in. So yeah, it does vary. I would say that probably a good number, if not majority of us, have some sort of tie into state law. But that's something you can find out by visiting your AT Act program.
Cool. Well, so, just talking, I brought up COPA earlier. We did a lot of meetings with our legislators. The O&P providers did, to try and get Medicaid, or what is known as Medi-Cal in California, to get our base reimbursement raised, just because there hasn't been any growth in that for, I believe, 30 or so years. And that was a major budget implication. And so we weren't successful in it, but we're not going to stop trying. And I was wondering if there's things that you have done that were successful that you can pass on to all of the listeners out there that may be trying to advocate for whatever it may be, a budget increase on Medicaid in their state, or even just patient accessibility to DME or any type of assistive devices. What, in your opinion, works, and what can we do as a community to help your journey as well?
It can be very daunting because there are so many steps in the process, right? So finding someone who will sponsor a bill is a huge step, because here in Florida, in the House of Representatives, they can only file so many bills. So they're capped out. So someone has to really believe in your cause to take one of those bill slots that they have. And then from there, it's just kind of following it every step of the way. And if a bill got assigned to a committee, which in my experience, both of my bills, so I had to file the statute change in the House and the Senate, so both chambers. And then each of those bills got assigned to 3 different committees. So it has to go through one committee to get to the next, to get to the next. And then if it passes all 3 of those, it'll go to the floor of that chamber. And then depending, some people say you want it to get on the floor of both chambers. Some people say it's fine if it just makes it to one, because then it'll send it over to the other one. But I made sure that if it was on the agenda, I reached out to every single person on that committee, mostly through email, just letting them know, hey, here's the information, here's all the background, attached a bunch of documents saying I'm here if you want to ask me any questions before you hear it on the floor. I would go to each of those committees and testify as well. And again, our bill didn't have a fiscal impact, but I made sure that there was someone there in front of them where they could put a face to what was happening. And if I wasn't available, I asked either one of my staff or one of our board members to go. And then afterwards, if they voted on it, sent them all a thank you email saying, hey, I really appreciate it. And then it was on to the next committee. So again, seeing who I could get to make sure it got on the agenda, and then reaching out to all of those people to let them know. And each step of the way, you have to celebrate those little wins. So yes, got it on the agenda. Awesome. Okay. Yes, they voted on it. Awesome. Now it's on to the next agenda. And that's why I say never losing hope, because it can be daunting, because sometimes it can be weeks before they want to put it on the next committee agenda to move it forward. Or you could get a lot of traction in one chamber and the other chamber doesn't move your bill at all, which can be a challenge. And a lot of things don't pass the first year. So it takes a lot of awareness building and kind of advocacy to make sure that as many people as possible know about your issue and know why it's important. And I think COPA is doing a great job with all of their data that they're bringing and the impact that it's going to have on people's lives to kind of build that story. Because if a legislator can take a story that you told them and then tell it as if it's their story, you know, they're going to be more connected to the cause. So as people with disabilities, especially in California, to get involved with that, especially if they're on Medi-Cal, and can offer some even testimonial, maybe it's just a written testimonial or something like that, that people from COPA can take to the legislature to say, this is why this is important. This is a specific person on Medi-Cal that this is impacting. And oh, by the way, it's thousands more that this change could help.
All makes sense. Just for our listeners, COPA is California Orthotics and Prosthetic Association. Just, I know we keep referencing COPA. I don't think we spelled it out before.
And these are local representatives, right? I mean, they're representing your own constituency, and I'm sure, you know, like every local municipality has their rep, and I bet all of our O&P providers out there and our patients and our community in general know these people somehow, some way. Is there like a relationship building that we should be doing even without a focused bill in hand or something that could, you know, maybe create awareness to our community?
Absolutely. So if you figure out when the legislature is in session in your state and then look outside of that time, so when they're not in session, they are super willing to come and visit your practices, or your support groups, anything like that, because they will eventually be up for re-election, or if they're not trying to run again, they're still interested in knowing what their constituents are up to. So especially if you're a business owner and you have a practice, invite them during those off seasons to come and see your practice, see what it's about, see what you do. And then that's kind of a great way to start building those relationships. Or if you're able to, going to their office and just saying hello and thanking them for what they did the last session if you liked what they did. And you don't have to like all of what they do, but if you can find some sort of topic or a vote that they passed that you were really appreciative of, because it's hard work for them, and they, at least in Florida, aren't really getting paid to do it. You know, all of them have other jobs outside of what they do as a representative, and just starting to build that relationship so that, you know, as they come along, they'll know who you are. And if you ask them, you know, to start supporting something, they'll be able to tie it exactly back to you and a visit that you had, and being able to do that every year. You know, I'm starting to meet with people this year and saying my exact same spiel, even though I met with them last year. I'm not going to assume they remember everything we talked about a year ago for 15 minutes. So even if you get them to come out once, ask them to come out again. Or if something new, maybe a new product that you're offering to people in your area, invite them to come back and see about that, or just send it to their staff so that they know kind of what you got going on. They might not respond right away, but they can always go back and pull up emails and notes that they have from your interactions.
Do you have any other tips or advice for people, practices, patients, whoever, of how they can kind of get more involved in trying to help efforts within the disability community for championing the cause?
Yeah, I would say subscribe to newsletters, right? Or podcasts like this, just so you're getting the information, because a lot of times groups, especially like AAPD, which I think is the American Association of People with Disabilities, they'll put out calls to action on stuff that's happening. And statewide disability rights organizations, which is the protection and advocacy groups that are federally required in each state. They also are doing a lot of legislative issues. So kind of being on people's email list to see what they're up to see if there is any call of actions, or just finding an issue that you want to support and then finding those people that are working on that as well.
Do you think, I remember we had meetings with staffers and not the actual reps. And I could see that as maybe being a daunting hurdle to overcome for people. They think maybe they're not being heard, but that's the process, right? And did you meet with staffers first and then get to meet with the actual reps, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think the staff is just as important as the reps themselves, because they're the ones that kind of like the first line of defense, right? And meeting with constituents. The representatives maybe not have all the time in the world. Not that the staffers do, but at least they can kind of farm them out. But most of, if not all the staff I've met with, they've taken notes and they've said, okay, we're going to track your bill. And if it does come up, I have all these notes to answer any questions. Or they'll say, great, I'm going to send this in my weekly report to my representative so that they know who I met with and what issues or causes to get behind. So I would not be disheartened if it's a staffer that takes a meeting with you or comes to your office instead of the representative themselves. But I would keep them in the loop for sure, because it might be that maybe you have to meet with them a couple of times or year after year. And also with that, staffers change. Staffers change pretty often. So don't be surprised if you're reaching out to one and then they're not there a month or two or a year later. So you have to be good at kind of looking up who your representative is and who their legislative aides are, because that can change pretty often. You might get some bounce backs. But I always copy the legislator on my emails, even if it's just to the aide. They probably don't see the emails because, again, they're getting inundated with all sorts of stuff, but they can go back and search for it if it does come across their radar. So it's a really great tool in that way.
Is there anything else that you want to add or touch base on or give a shout out or anything you'd like to add to what we've talked about so far?
Oh, gosh. Probably. Let's see. I think people should not be overwhelmed by the legislative process or politics in general, right? Like we get really inundated with campaigns and stuff like that, but your vote matters. It really does. And pay attention to what the people representing you are voting for, especially when it comes to health insurance and us getting our devices paid for and being able to get them paid for in a way that the people who are providing the services can actually make money. So that our industry and our livelihood can stay equitable across the country. So get involved if you're willing. If not, maybe get involved through financial donations if you're willing to do that as well, to either political advocacy committees or different groups that are willing to get involved. But there's always something. And I'm happy to be a resource if anybody wants to reach out to me. If not, go find your AT Act program in your state and figure out what kind of technology that you can benefit from.
Thank you so much for joining us, Whitney. This is great.
Yeah, thank you very much, Whitney. You're awesome. Congratulations on everything you've achieved.
Thanks, you guys. I really appreciate your time today.
All right. If you would like to learn more about FAAST, visit FAAST.org, and that is FAAST.org. Or just follow the link in our show notes.
Well, there you have it. Thank you for listening to the O&P Check-In, an SPS podcast.
If you like what you hear, hit the subscribe button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please rate and review the show to help fellow O&P professionals find us.
We'd also like to hear from you directly. What topics do you want us to cover? Do you have any burning questions? Email us with your thoughts and feedback at spspodcast@spsco.com. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.